How to stay on top of homeschool record keeping. Seriously, how do we do that? Well, today I'm going to be sharing 3 or 4 points with you when it comes to homeschool record keeping to help ease the stress, help you see the difference in these different types of records. But first, before I go into sharing these points about homeschool record keeping, let me tell you just a little bit about myself. It won't take long. I always make these video how-tos about you because I want you to stay the course for homeschooling. My name is Tina Robertson. I've homeschooled well over 20 years. I have 3 homeschool grads. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of new homeschoolers through my program, New Homeschooler Boot Camp, where I met with new homeschoolers in person in Texas. I've now brought that online boot camp to you, like I said, online, self-paced. Not only that, I've broke it down into different workshop modules. I am the creator of the 7-step do-it-yourself homeschool planner, numerous lap books, unit studies. I have a group, Homeschool Dynamics by Tina Robertson, and my Facebook page is How to Homeschool Easy. That's enough about me. You can read more about me over there. There's lots to say, but I don't want to go on and on because I want to get right into talking about record keeping. And let me just tell you this one thing. I'm going to try to hold this to about 20 minutes, but there's no promises. I'm a detailed person. I know you can hit replay and watch it over and over. I'd rather you have these details while they're on my mind. I have my outline over here to keep myself reined in so I don't just start talking and going from A to Z. That really wouldn't do you very much good. So I'm going to try to make these few points. And of course, as you have questions, post them. I'm happy to help. I'm here for you. Okay, let's get into how do we really know to stay, or how should we stay really on top of homeschooled record keeping? Seriously, it really can be that much of a chore. Okay, here's the first point I want to make with you. Okay, and sometimes we don't think this way. We worry all of these things about record keeping, but what we have to do is kind of step back for a minute and analyze, why do we have to record keep? What's our goal? What's the purpose? Purpose gives us a plan. Purpose gives us a path. I did not think about this when I was overwhelmed with homeschool record keeping. See, there's many different reasons why to homeschool record keep. Sometimes we're new to homeschool and we think, oh, well, we're going to have proof at any given time. So sometimes it's really out of fear. Now, what I didn't know at that time was how many hundreds of thousands of homeschoolers that had gone before me and paved the way, and how easy homeschool really is in most states. They really don't tout a lot of record keeping, save and except a few. There are a few states that are very specific. And that's the path that I'm going to take for those that perhaps need to keep specific records. Okay, but first, the point I'm making is it out of fear? Because we think the homeschool laws may change? There probably would be an all-out rebellion if any homeschool laws were to get any more stricter. But that was my goal in the beginning when I started. I thought, oh, I'm the only one new here. We're not. We're not. Thousands and thousands have gone before you. And so I didn't really realize that. I thought, okay, I could kind of relax now. Also, my kids were very young. So that's the second point under this first point, which is, are your children young where you don't really have to record keep? It really doesn't become important until middle or high school where we have to record keep, because then we have to start preparing for that transcript. And for some reason, that just weighed heavily on my mind all my years of homeschooling, when I really shouldn't have worried about it until my kids get to be preteen and teen stages. See? Now, it's different because I even had a kid, because I've had some parents in my workshops, they'll say, well, my kid likes grades. Well, give him a grade if he likes grades. I had one like that. He wanted a grade. And some kids are like that. They don't want to just be pat on the back and say, good job. They want specifics. They want details. And I had one like that was like me. He wanted specifically what he did well and what he could improve. And I would write notes to him notes to him on his pages because that's how he preferred it. My others didn't care. I would just say excellent or approved or work on handwriting, but they love getting those little notes from me. So I would do that with them when they were younger. But most of the time it was just acceptable or excellent or satisfactory, and we moved on. Okay, so one more area I'm going to cover first about why you're record keeping. Here's one more point that I see often, and that is sometimes homeschoolers begin to homeschool and they're not so sold on the homeschooling lifestyle. They maybe have not really switched to a homeschool mindset. Perhaps maybe there's just a little miniature public school at home. They really don't understand that homeschooling is a whole different approach, a whole different lifestyle, the freedom that it entails. And so they worry sometimes about having to send them back to public school. Or perhaps other things have come up. Life happens. Life happens. Although I feel with 100% of my heart that homeschooling is a superior educational approach because it's hard to beat the odds of one-to-one tutoring. There have been occasions in my life where I didn't even know if I could continue because of health, work, and other things that we just have no control over. So we have to make the best use of circumstances. So the point I'm making is, are you record keeping because you think you may send them back to public school? If that's the case, public school is the one that always decides which grade they are in unless your child is working at an accredited public school. And a public school doesn't have to be online to be accredited. Curriculum is not accredited. Only the school is accredited. So if you're thinking, I need to send them back, or we're just testing out homeschooling this year, and you don't want them to get behind in a grade, then my suggestion is to use a public school at home. Because it's just really changing the geography. You're not really doing the homeschool approach, but that may not be your goal right now, and I want you to have that answer. So you're looking for an accredited public school. They come both online and they also have physical books, whichever serves your purpose the best. Okay, so I just wanted to cover that in the first point about why we're record keeping, okay? Because it's up to the public school to decide what grade your child is in. Even if you homeschooler, some had to send them back to public school. You were always subject to what their tests are. The public school says this is what they have to do for this test or this grade level or this grade level. And actually, even, I'm just veering off here a little bit just to share some of my experience, even some homeschoolers have used an accredited public school, but because this one state says that's what we cover in fourth grade, then they're going to have to be placed in, fifth grade or whatever. In other words, I've also seen where even they've used an accredited public school, and the public school of a different state says, well, that's what we covered last year. So, they're not in this grade level. They're going to have to repeat last year, or they're on this year. They're not really sixth grade. They're fifth grade. The point is, a public school always has the say about where your child is, but you increase your odds of them being in the right grade level by using an accredited public school, because then a public school recognizes that as a true school. If that makes any sense. Okay, just let you know my experience. And of course, if you have some questions, post them down there. I don't want to get too far off, but I want to share the reasons why we record keep. Okay, let me move on to the second point about how to record keep. I'm going to get on to how we do it and what we have to keep, but you have to understand these things affect our record keeping and whether we're stressing about it or not, or if we really do need to keep it. Okay, let's move on then to talking about subjects. Subjects make a difference in what we have to keep and not keep, along with state law, the two S's, SS, subjects, state law. Okay, so let me explain about state law first, and then we're going to talk about subjects too. State laws vary. Some states are very relaxed. They don't give any number of hours that a student has to jot down or record keep or track. Other states say you have to keep this many hours as the parent, and not only that, or these many lessons, or you have to do 180 lessons, which is 36 weeks. That's a standard school year. And they'll say, then they also will go one step further and divide them into core and non-core subjects. And that's always been so confusing. I've never liked those terms once states started redefining some of their laws or clearing them up about core or non-core. Because core subjects, as a mom who is not a public school teacher, I've learned everything through trial and error, and in my teaching, these workshops that I did for new homeschoolers, everything was through research and many years. Core subjects have always been the foundation of any great education. That ties a little bit in with subjects. So the core subjects, they are the core. In other words, it's a three-legged stool, if you will, upon which a great education stands on or sits on. And it's the 3 R's, that three-legged stool: reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's at the core. When a child can do those subjects well, he can learn anything else he wants to know. If he can read well, he can learn geography. If he can read well, he can do science. If he knows math, he can go into any sciences he wants to, if he progresses in math. So the point I'm making is that as an educator, a home educator, my core, when I speak of core, are those 3 R's, those solid, basic subjects upon which all the other content subjects, non-core, stand on. Okay, now with that being said, that's not what states tout. They will say something like this, for example. They'll say history, science, language arts, and math. Those are the 4 core subjects that they require you keep hours for. So the point is, in the second step, you have to clearly understand what do you have to track and not track. And additionally, you're only required to meet the law. Meet the law, not overstep and give them more than they need. Every reviewer is different. I've learned that in helping the hundreds of new homeschoolers I have through the years. Every reviewer is different, just as even within the same city, within the same state. Some of them prefer to get records online. Some of them prefer to have them in hand. They have these different criteria. You just really, it takes a little bit of research to find out who you want to use, what they want, marrying that or weaving that with what your state law is, and not over meeting it. We don't have to give them more than what they need. We only want to meet the law. We don't want to empower them any more than what the state law says that they're supposed to do. Now, with that being said, it doesn't mean that you can't keep it or track it, but you're trying to meet it. So, okay, first, what are your state laws? Second, do they divide core and non-core? What are the core subjects? And if so, how many hours? Some will even go so far as to say 600 core hours. I believe that's North Carolina or South Carolina state law. I keep all these laws kind of in my head, but I think it's North Carolina's law. They even will say core hours. That's the very first thing I do when I help new homeschoolers or help any struggling homeschooler. What's your law? That's going to be your foundation or your start for your path. Remember, we don't know which of these paths we have to go down until we know what the law is. Okay, then with that, remember the subjects. Okay, now let me talk a little bit more about the subjects. Math is relatively an easy subject to grade and track. You get these 30 answers, right or wrong, you give them a grade. Some of the others are not so easy to grade, but they're certainly easy to track. Okay, so here is how I tracked, even though I lived in a state that had very relaxed laws. You know, remember I told you in the beginning, I was afraid someone was going to ask me in a moment's notice, so the law was going to change overnight without me knowing it. Never mind how many went ahead of me and paved the way so smoothly. But I still kept records. That's where I created the 7-step do-it-yourself homeschool planner. There's not another one like it. I can tout that. Why? Because you create it. I have forms at every step, numerous options. You start with choosing the cover, to the lesson pages, to the tracking pages you need or don't need this year. So I started by creating my own unique planner, not trying to fit my family into a planner and think something's wrong with me. I got exactly what I need to track that year. For example, do you have to track attendance? I have an attendance record. Do you have to track or give samples of pages of work? You can do that. Lesson plans. Sometimes some states, they just require an overview, one little paragraph of what you're going to teach that year. Again, make it easy. Don't try to go overboard in what you have to keep or prove. Okay, so here's another point. Here's how I helped my children to help me organize. And that is, we had binders every year. Binders. For the paper clutter, stuff that wasn't done online, I printed, or I had a binder. It was sectioned off into different subjects. And if it was something that we wanted to keep, they would put it in the binder that day when they were finished. Or they'd take the binder down, they'd work, and they'd keep their work in the binder, regardless of whether I graded it or not then. See, I didn't have a whole stack of papers. Now, when I first started, I thought I was a teacher, public school teacher, and I had a little box. I told them at the end of the day, put their paperwork in there. Well, my mind, I have to do clutter-free. My mind was like, oh, no, that's not going to work. So that's when I got a binder for each child. And I put their work in there. Graded or not graded, they kept up with it. They organized it by subject. Then I schooled 4 days a week. And I used that one day to catch up with grading or whatever else I needed to do, or tracking lessons. Now, at the end of the year, this is also the part that worked out real well. At the end of the year, I could simply take their binders, and I did this a few years. I didn't go through it because I didn't have time. I just took all the contents out of the binder and I coil bound it. Yep, coil bound it. Stored it in a tote, one of those Rubbermaid totes, up in the attic by year. That was it. Now, of course, as we got the smartphones, because I've homeschooled well before we had so much online, now to so much online, so many wonderful apps and so much online storage. Then what I started doing was taking pictures of them and putting sample of their work online to store and keep. So this is one way that I was able to help track their work, was by keeping samples. Because here's what a lot of reviewers want to know. Because sometimes you're like, I need to keep this review for the end of the year review. How do I keep it? What do I do? Well, what you want to do is show some progress through the year that the child has made. So I suggest keeping a little bit of writing at the beginning of the year, a sample in the middle, and something at the end. And then you also need to find out if your reviewer prefers physical or online. If they prefer something online, you can have a drive, a cloud storage of some kind. I used a private Facebook group, and I put photos up there when I couldn't. Everything was right there in one spot. Now, when we started high school, it was different. I would still add some things online to my private Facebook group, pictures and things, because I wouldn't have time to jot anything else down. I didn't know how to prepare a transcript. I would do that, but I also would just type in a document what we did for that day. From that came my student planner. See, so what happens is the shift as your kids get older needs to move some to them for being responsible for record keeping. I have a do-it-yourself student planner. It's edible. It's for you at no cost on my site, Tina's Dynamic Homeschool Plus. You don't even have to create the whole planner. At the beginning, I didn't. I only had the assignment sheets. That's the key, the assignment sheets. I would assign them. They would keep up what they did. You could also keep the assignment sheets to show proof of what you did. Their planners are proof of what they did. Like I said in the beginning, it was just an assignment sheet. Then I created and morphed into a planner for them too. Just like my 7-step unique homeschool planner, you create it yourself. You can print off each week assignment sheets. You can add it to your lesson planner. You can create your students' own planner. You have so many options to record keep. So I would keep achievements, I would keep certificates as they got to high school, reading logs, attendance, samples of work, artwork, music recitals, pictures, field trip notes that they would have. And remember, some reviewers usually don't require all of that. They just kind of require an outline, but you can keep it for yourself in an online storage is what I prefer now. And then, of course, some of the physical paperwork, because some things just can't replace that. I like to put my hands on some of the work now, but in the beginning, it wasn't that way. And even if you don't want to use online storage, do like what I did. Take those notebooks. Each child has a different color. They know it's theirs. They get the work out of there. It's up to them whether they want to do it in the notebook, take it out of the notebook. Most of the time, my kids want to take it out of the notebook. I didn't care how they did it, as long as they put it back in that subject, in that tab, and it's out of sight, and it's with their other paperwork so I can grade it. Then, like I said, usually in the evening, or I would take a little bit more time in the morning or on my teacher day, because we would school 4 days. I would take part of that time to grade and look over the paperwork that I had to keep. Attendance records, all of these are ways to prove and keep. Whether you keep it physical, whether you do online storage, whether you do a private Facebook group or any other private social platform where they can keep progress of what they do. And if they're preparing a video, make YouTube private, make their channel private, and keep the progress there. You can video also what you're doing and teaching and showing the progress that they made. These are all ways to prove and to record keep. But these are ways that I'm talking about right now where you live in a state that requires it, or you have older children. Or if you have a child that wants grades, then keep it easy on yourself. But you can still keep all of their records together is what you can do. The other thing that I want to share with you as I look over here at my notes is I just want to remind you about one more thing too, and that is please don't try to get a complicated system and try to fit your family into it. That's a huge mistake. I see all these new apps, believe me, I have tried so many of them because I've homeschooled well over 20 years. They've come on the scene. I thought, oh good, they're for organizing me. But the truth of it is, a system that is the best is a simple system. Simple. What will work for you? What works for you? When they finish paperwork, take a picture of it, scan it, whatever, put it online, throw the paper away. That's also how I keep down clutter. And also, you can keep things in folders. That's what I did. I kept things in folders for the year, for the month, and then when we were finished, I'd put it all in one year for online. So take pictures, recordings, their drawings, samples of writing. There's so many things that you can take pictures of and keep without having to store as clutter. And let me just talk about, I want to back up here too and talk about one more thing when I look here on my notes. I want to go back to when I was talking about assignment sheets. When I created the student planner, I also made one in there because some states track by hours, like I was explaining about the core hours. So I created a page for the students that tracks by increments of 15 minutes because you have to track the hours. Now, I think that's harder to have that to track the hours, but if you just think about it, if you finish a lesson, your lesson's for 1 hour, that's it. You don't have to track it. You just check it off on their assignment list. So I just wanted to let you know that in the student planner that's on my site, Tina's Dynamic Homeschool Plus, I do have a student page on there that's just tracking by 15-minute increments too, if you need that. Okay, let me recap this real quick. So the first point I made was to be sure that you know why you're record keeping. You know, that will give you a path to how much you have to keep, whether you want to keep it physical, whether you want to keep it online. Are your kids younger and you're doing it because of fear of the homeschool law? You have all the flexibility to keep however you want to. But if you're getting to middle and high school, you want a method that is simple and a method where your children help you. And that brings me to the second thing I talked about, the 2 S's. I was talking about the subject and the state laws. Be sure you know what the state laws are. Be sure you understand the difference in the subjects, because when we have those foundational subjects, they're considered core, but not all states call them core. They call science and history, language arts, and math, because of course by high school we need those other content subjects, so then they become core as well. So those are important. And then think of getting your children to help you through assignment sheets, planners. I prefer, and those that know me, I prefer written. I have used so many online things, Google Drive. I'll always come back to doing the best by writing things down. My children do as well. Of course, we can use shared apps and things like this, but we prefer to use something written. No, it doesn't mean I erase it. I just do a little arrow forward if we didn't get to it, but I love being able to check it off, see what our plans were, and also by saving these checklists and these overviews, it gives you something that you can prove or give to the state to make in a binder. Again, when it comes to the reviewer, ask him or her what they prefer, whether it's something online or whether it's physical. You can bind these up, and if you keep them in a notebook, then it's easy. You take all the papers out, bind them, put it away, and you're done for the year without all the clutter. I hope that answers some of your questions. I enjoyed talking to you. If you have any questions, just pop them down below, and for sure I'll get a chance to talk to you. Bye.